Fight.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Watch the Lights RC Podcast. It's not even an RC podcast, RC channel, I'm sorry. I said today I was going to cover the Street Outlaw truck. I changed my mind. I figured I'd do the censored brushless motor. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to cover how I set up my Tekin Gen 3 Spec R 17.5 motor. And I'm going to show you guys how to set them up, how to modify them, how to change them, and how I set one up for racing. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to start with, once again, is rotors. Rotors, it's the same thing from different manufacturers. They're going to sell a variety of rotors for their brushless censored motors. So on a brushless censored motor, you can get rotors from 11.5 millimeter to 13.5 millimeter. And in some companies, you're going to see that you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 12.3 millimeter rotors, say, but they're blue, green, or yellow. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the difference? The difference is the Gauss rating. So that's the amount of magnetism that the rotor has. So you can take one rotor, 3 different Gauss ratings, and get 3 different performances. The stronger the Gauss rating is on a rotor, the more magnetism it's going to have and the more torque it will have. So that's why when you look at rotors from different companies, you're going to see it, try to figure out what the difference between, say, a 12.3 gold, a 12.3 blue, and a 12.3 green are. Well, what the difference is that Gauss rating. So, you know, one could be 1300 Gauss rating and the other one's 1500 Gauss rating. The stronger the Gauss rating, the more torque the rotor has. Censored brushless motors are a little different than your TP or non-censored brushless motor. If you've ever noticed, the non-censored brushless motor usually comes in a KV rating. 2300, 1500, 1650, they come in KV ratings. Well, when you buy a 10 scale censored or A scale censored brushless motor, most of the time they're going to come in turn ratings. And the reason being is because on a censored motor, you have exactly that, a Hall effect sensor. That Hall effect sensor sits really close to the rotor. So basically, it's going to sit like that, and it's determining the position of the rotor inside the stator. So here's where things get tricky. When you have this type of motor, and the reason most of them come in turn ratings is because I can take this 17.5 turn motor and I can take it from 2600 kV all the way to 5300 kV. So the kV is adjustable because we're able to adjust the timing of the motor. So these have all kinds of adjustments. So it's pretty cool, you know. And then you can add timing from your ESC. So, you know, if you have 30 degrees timing on the motor, then you have 30 degrees boost and 15 turbo. Now you're adding, you know, 75 degrees of timing to a motor, and you're essentially increasing the KV of the motor as you add the timing. So that's why a lot of people use sensor motors. The amount of adjustableness to a sensor motor is awesome. let's talk about, we talked about shimming the other ones. So the shimming on these, it's really going to come down to when you have your Hall effect sensor right here and your rotor, the sensor reads the rotor. So basically, the closer you can get those, right? When you shim your motor, you want to get those as close as you possibly can, but make sure that when it's in the bearing carrier, that it doesn't touch the sensor. You want it as close as you possibly can get it without touching. From my experience, that's where I found you get the most consistent timing readings. Consistency and timing is a huge factor. So basically, this is your timing board. You have A, B, and C. So basically, when this thing fires off, it's gonna see 30 degrees, 30 degrees, and 30 degrees. That would be ideal. But a lot of times, sensors aren't manufactured perfectly. So you might see on the motor analyzer, you might see 30, 31, 35. So what you do is you adjust the timing on the back of the can just a little bit and retest the timing on the motor analyzer and see its values. You want to have a tolerance that's as close as you can get to being perfect, all A, B, and C. If the timing is way off, you're probably good idea to get a new timing board. But what you're really looking for is the consistency. So even if you have it at 40 or 30 or 20 degrees, you want 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 30, 40, 40, 40, whatever it is. If you have a variance of maybe 1 or 2, that's acceptable and it's within range. But you don't want huge variances. You don't want 50, 30, 40. Like that's just so far out of range that it's not going to be any benefit to you. And timing boards though, that's really something to look at on your motor analyzer, something to pay attention to, and it's a definite benefit when tuning a motor, getting a consistent timing board. Once again, the rotors, like I said, they come in different sizes, different Gauss ratings. So basically what a Gauss rating is, once again, is the amount of magnetism the rotor has. So the stronger that Gauss rating, the stronger the magnetism is inside the stator. So that'll play, the stronger that magnetism and the closer that we talked about yesterday, the air gap to the stator, the tighter that air gap is and the more magnetism, the more torque you're gonna have. So you could have a 13.5 millimeter rotor that doesn't have a very high Gauss rating and still create decent torque, but it's gonna have more RPM than a 13 millimeter rotor that has a higher Gauss rating. So that's just rotors and in a way to tune your sensor motor. So when I tune this motor, what I do to start is, if you look right here, this is everything I go through to tune this motor. So I actually set the motor to 0 RPMs, turn on my motor analyzer, and I take a measurement of the timing board, I take the kV, the amp draw, and the RPM that it makes at 0 RPM. And I do that from 0 to 60. And as you can see, we go from 2691 kV, 1.1 amps at 21,800 RPMs, all the way down to 5,335 kV, pulling at 12.5 amps and making 39,486 RPMs. So that's a huge adjustment. But the reason I do it in intense from 0 to 60 is this way, when I'm tuning this motor for drag racing, I know that this motor makes this RPM at 60 and 50. So if I set up somewhere between there, I kind of can figure out the kind of RPM and amp draw that I'm going to get and the consistency in the timing board. And it sounds like a lot of work, but honestly, in drag racing, you want to put in the work to have the fastest motor possible. If you're not putting in the work, you're just gonna have the same stuff everybody else has. This is what separates everybody. You know, this is my motor that I've ran 157s on. It has tons of work. I didn't do it. One of my sponsors did it for me, but he put in hours on it, hours. And you're gonna probably ask, why does it have blue tape? It's a good question. I'm gonna tell you. It's nothing secret. Blue tape in my shop is everywhere. I keep it and use it for my foam tires, but most importantly, on my motors, you can see that they're open. The stators are open, the windings are open. You know, the foam and the glue kicks up rocks. So what I do is I take tape and I'll tape my motor up to prevent any debris from getting inside my motor and damaging the motor. So I always add tape before I race, and that prevents anything from getting inside my motor, and it helps keep it cleaner. So when I'm done at the end of a race day, I undo it, I spray it, I clean it, I lube the bearings, and it's good to go. I'm not worried about damage. But that's basically how I set my 17.5 motor up. Yes, it's a lot of work. Get a motor analyzer if you want to get into tuning censored motors. It's a tremendous help. It's kind of the only way to do it. Sky RC makes one. Trinity makes the Motorlizer, which is really good. It's expensive, but it works really well. In drag racing, a lot of guys are using Tekin or Trinity. Tekin makes a lot of rotors rotor options for their motors for modified and stock. You can use a stock rotor and a modified motor in a stock, a rotor in a stock. It doesn't matter. Once again, it'll come down to the millimeter and the Gauss rating of the rotor. And Trinity makes a ton of rotors for all their motors, and it's basically the same thing. Another good start too, when you're building your drag motor or you're upgrading your drag motor, is to switch to the ceramic bearings like I've discussed before. Ceramic bearings are just a tremendous help, especially in something that's spinning almost 40,000 RPMs. You want the best bearing possible. And that's it, you know. I'll get more into, now that I've got all my numbers, I'll get more into when I start putting the 17.5 car together. I'll take these numbers and show you guys how I take the data off of the RS Pro Black, and I take that data and combine it with this data to tune my car. All of these numbers are important. It's important to write them down. It's important to pay a lot of information. The data that you guys collect now, and you combine it with the data that you have from the track, that's what's gonna make you fast. Numbers, crunching numbers, putting in time. It's a lot of work, I get it, but hard work pays off. When you go and you drop the fastest number you've ever dropped on a track, or you've beat that person that you were never able to beat because of all the time you put in, the reward is worth it. You know, that's what makes drag racing fun, the excitement. You know, it's not guaranteed you're gonna win, but if you put in all that effort and you do win, it makes it so much more fun. So if you guys have questions on censored motors, censored motor setup, hit me up. We'll discuss it. I can help you out any way I can. But like I said, once again, just don't be afraid to work on them. They're yours. Take the time, invest the time into learning this stuff. Become more proficient at your RC. You know, the more that you learn, the more fun you're gonna have. I can only do so much help telling you guys this, and I'm doing my best. I'm not the best behind camera, I'm trying. But you know, I wanna see everybody have fun. And on that subject, I think soon I'm gonna do a video, because all I see is this cap, that cap, this cap. We're gonna talk about capacitors. And we're gonna really, I'm reading, I'm getting as much information as I can. I'm talking to people. I am gonna figure out and get as much information as I can, so when I do this video on capacitors, I can give you guys informed information on capacitors and which ones to use and why they're so big and why they're not big and the UF on them, and do I need ones that are 10,000 UF versus ones that are 256 UF? And do I need a printed circuit board, or do I need breadboard, or do I need a Linux board? We're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna invest some time so I can give you guys the best information I can on capacitors. I mean, Do we really need capacitors so big that we have to tow a trailer behind our drag cars to run them? I don't think so. Let's get that out of here. We're gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna work on it, and I hope you guys enjoy. I know this was a quick little one, but I wanted to touch bases on the censored motor, and I hope it's enough information to help somebody out a little bit. You guys have a great day, and I'll be back next week with probably the short course truck or the street outlaw truck. And as soon as I've compiled enough information on capacitors, I'll get it to you. Have a great day, guys. Like and subscribe. Thanks.